5 million. 4.5 million. 4.3 million. Those are the rounded totals of the past 4 major wars or conflicts that have happened on this planet. Yes, I know there's been many more and many in between, but for the purposes of this example, I want to focus on the larger ones here. That's not to negate the smaller ones, keep that in mind. Out of those 4 that I've mentioned, you have about 135 to 140 million that have died. Put that in perspective. These are people, these are human beings. The vast majority of these people, they are men. It is men who fight your wars. It is men who willingly lay down their lives. It is men that put themselves in harm's way. It is men that volunteer. It is men that say, I will protect against all enemies, foreign and domestic. It is men that have to register with the Selective Services on their 18th birthday. It is men who have to promise to lay down their lives so they can vote in the United States of America. Men, not only in the United States of America, but men all across the world. We are the most expendable resource ever known in human existence. It is men right now, between the ages of 18 and 60, that are not allowed to leave Ukraine and be with their families. It is men who must stick behind to defend the country, defend their homeland, defend their towns, their cities, defend their children, defend their wives, defend their families. It is men who are doing this. You women complain about equality when you have no business complaining about equality, ever. There is no legal privilege or right that you as a woman have over a man. Not one. There are legal rights and legal privileges that women have over men, though. So if you want to continue with your mantra of men and women aren't equal, well, you know what? You're right. They're not equal. You see men die by the millions to protect you. Many bravely volunteer to do this, and many are forced to do this. And you dare bitch and say that things aren't equal. How dare you? You see, modern women here in the West, we have selective equality. Or rather, you have selective equality. You have all of the benefits of equality with none of the negatives of equality. Women, you have the right to vote without agreeing to die. Women, you have the right to genital integrity rights. Women, you, for the first time in human history, have the right to choose parenthood. No child is born today without the express consent, will, and intent of the would-be mother. Women, you have the right to be assumed caregivers. You have the right to call unwanted coarse sex rape. You have the right to domestic violence shelters and government housing benefits. You have the right to exclusive benefits for being a business owner. Women, you have the absolute and unconditional right to kill your children. You have the right to file false police reports and have nothing happen to you in return. You have the right to not participate in equally dangerous jobs as men, but still demand equal pay for a job that you haven't done that is not equal to a man. You have the right to not contribute equally in the military. You have the right to have standards lowered for yourself in the military if you choose to join. You have the right to lower suicide rates, homicide rates, and yet have exclusive rights to women's shelters because men's shelters do not exist, even though men have higher stats for homicide and suicide rates. You have a right to a man's resources through alimony and child support. You women have the right to and assumed greater custody of a child. Men have to prove that they have rights over a child. They have to forcibly obtain them in a court of law. You women do not. You have the right to be treated more important than male victims. You women have the right to a lesser punishment for the same exact crime. This is here in the Western world. You know, ladies, equality is great, isn't it? It's great until you actually look into what equality is. Then you find it isn't so great now, is it? You want all of the privileges of equality, but none of the negative consequences, and so far you've attained it. You've attained it on the backs of men. You see, you women want to be modern women. You want to be boss babes. You want to own businesses. You want to make your own money and not contribute said money as much as humanly possible. You want to be CEOs, you want to be presidents. You want every perceived privilege that comes with being a man, and you want to skirt any and all of the negative consequences that come with it. There aren't any legal privileges that come with being a man, only privileges that you in your mind have made up to think and to make yourself feel as though men have been privileged, but they're not. You see, that's a lie you've been sold for quite a long time now. I would argue that the responsibility and stress that a man feels for his family, protecting his family, providing for his family, etc., is a privilege that you as a woman will never have to experience. You know, the gender pay gap has been debunked time and time and time again, yet you still continue with the mantra that you are paid less for equal work when you are not paid less for equal work. In fact, I would argue that women are given more privileges and rights in the modern workforce than men ever have been given. In some respects, you take home more pay than a man does when you consider privileges that are offered to you, such as paid maternity leave. You know, regardless of your political affiliations, regardless of whether you're for Russia or against Russia, whether you're for Ukraine or against Ukraine, regardless of whether you're for the sovereignty of a nation or not for the sovereignty of the nation, it is undeniable that there is one unwavering constant, and that singular constant is, it is men fighting. In Russia, it is young men and older men who are conscripted to do the bidding of someone that they may or may not agree with. In Ukraine, it is barbers, it is family men, it is cooks, it is chefs, it is shoemakers, farmers. It is any and every man able-bodied between the ages of 18 and 60 who are not allowed to leave the country so they can defend their homeland. Now, I will say this as a disclaimer because I know someone is going to say it somewhere, or it will come up. Yes, there are women who do this too. Yes, I know this, and they are just as important as the men who do this. But overwhelmingly, it is men who are put in this position. And overwhelmingly, it is men who die for this position as well. So the next time you, as a woman, claim or declare something as unequal to a man, just think back to this. Think back to every war that you didn't have to fight. Think back to every time that you didn't have to put yourself in harm's way. Think back through all the times in history that it was women and children, particularly women first, even before the children, who were brought to safety at the expense of men, at the expense of the most expendable resource this world has ever known, and that is the human man, the human male. So then lastly, this begs the question as to why. Why do we have a society where it's men who are chosen and voluntarily choose for the most dangerous things that this world has to offer? Why is it men that put themselves in harm's way? Why is it men that choose jobs that are more dangerous? Why is it men that instinctively defend, protect, and serve their families and their country? I personally believe that it's not only instinctual, but it's biological. You know, this goes back to the differences between men and women only liking to acknowledge them when it benefits them in some way, shape, or form. You know, whether you women like to admit it, men are still and will always be, as a whole, stronger, faster, more agile. They will always have greater muscle mass. They will always have natural greater bone density. They will always be built for the fight response, not the flight response. You see, you women trying to be men, it simply doesn't work. Maybe a handful of you are able to pull it off because you have higher testosterone levels, but as a whole, generally speaking, you can't pull it off. So why even try? You know, probably the first thing a man looks for in a woman is her femininity, not whether she's a boss babe, not whether she can hold her own, not whether she can act just like him. No, he's looking for the opposite. He's looking for someone who is kind, caring, someone who's compassionate, someone who enhances himself. He's looking for someone who is the opposite to his masculinity. You know, with regards to equality, in my opinion, you will never be equal to men until you are forced to be put in harm's way like a man. Alright, I kind of got off in that last bit there. Maybe that's another episode for another time. Another video for another time, rather. Bottom line is this. You love equality until push comes to shove. Then you invoke your feminine nature in order to gain the privileges of society that society affords you. You live by the public outcry of, we demand equal rights for all women, but quietly, in the shadows, that mantra really is, we demand the same equal rights that men have, with the exception of the ones that we don't want. And what we do have, we want it tailored to fit our needs, to fit our circumstances, to give us the advantage. Thank you for joining me today for the Fallacious Truth. Please keep those displaced and those putting their lives on their line to defend their families and their homelands in your thoughts and prayers. Please also join me next time for another episode of the Fallacious Truth. Also, please like, share, and subscribe. I'd really appreciate it. Thank you, and take care.